Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. I got another Master Duel video for you all. So it's time to come to Mathmech. As I've been mentioning in my past couple of videos, the way I'm doing deck profiles for the start of the season is we're going to go ahead and go through not only the decks that I think are going to be tier 1 this meta, but also, less than coincidentally, the decks that I think were most impacted by the ban list. So we started with Pearly, then did Dragon Link. Now we're going to do Mathmech. I do think that these are the top three decks of the meta, and I actually think that Mathmech is probably the best one of them. I think it's really, really close, but I think Mathmech is best. The reason that we have saved Mathmech for the last of these three decks is, well, the fact that I think between this, Pearly, and Dragon Link, this deck is the least impacted by the ban list. I actually think Labyrinth is even less impacted, losing only one Stovey, but we'll do Mathmech next, because, again, Mathmech did at least lose 2 cards, Diameter and Cynet Mining, but of course, those hits aren't necessarily the most impactful in the world, but they do still have at least some amount of significance, right? Mathmech Diameter in particular, this card is very often used for your turn 1 plays, so only having 1 copy means you won't have it available for the follow-up, which can matter sometimes. There's a lot of times where if you're going for like an OTK, when you have the attack, whether it be, well, I guess we're talking about if you've already done your turn 1 combos, right? So this would be turn 3, your follow-up turn, when you go for the OTK. Not all the time, not even most of the time, but a decent amount of the time, I would like to summon another Diameter and make a second Alembertain, right? And then have that Omni Negate up, and then moving forward, do my OTK under that Omni Negate. But lines like that aren't as much of an option. Another thing, and I talked about this in the ban list video, but another thing I really don't like about Diameter going to 1 is that Circular is eventually going to go to 1. And when that happens, they're not going to unlimit Diameter right away. And where Mathmech might normally not be so bad if Circular was at 1, it's going to feel very, very bad with both Circular and Diameter at 1. So maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe they will either not hit Circular, which I think would probably be a mistake unless they really look for another hit like they did with Merlin Tier Limits, or maybe they'll unlimit Diameter as soon as Circular goes to 1. I really hope one of those two things happens, because a world where this deck has to play with 1 Diameter and 1 Circular is going to be miserable. But we don't have to worry about that world for the time being. So I did switch up a few things in this deck, there are a few things that I do think you need to keep in mind with these post-ban list changes, because again, while the changes aren't the most impactful, they do still matter to somewhat of a degree. So before, I was already only playing 1 Alembertain, but moving forward, I think I'm not saying it's 100% correct to always only play 1. I think it's still fine to play 2, but between the fact that we're not using this for follow-up plays anymore because we don't have Diameter for follow-up plays anymore, and the fact that the extra deck does end up being pretty tight on space, honestly, right now, I think 1 copy of this is probably the way to go. Like, the second copy is honestly nice, not even for follow-up plays, but to actually have something else to be able to make off the Superfactorial if they end up like bestialing or banishing somehow otherwise your Diameter. But like, I don't know, I think the only thing I could see myself really dropping for it is Almiraj, but I think Almiraj is way too valuable because, you know, if you open like a Hand Trap plus Parallel Exceed, Almiraj will make that a full combo. So I think Almiraj is needed. Aggregator is somewhat removable. I really like having the follow-up negate, though. It comes up a lot for me. I can understand why people don't like Aggregator. It is tricky to use because it activates on a separate chain link, so you have to time it very, very well. But I think it's a very good card, honestly. I am still going to be playing it. I would not consider cutting it for a second. I mean, that's why I'm not playing a second Alembertain, right? Is because I think stuff like Aggregator and Almiraj are better. I don't know, Heatsoul, honestly, is my first choice of a card to cut, because with this particular build, with the Firewalls and Singularity, the only time you end up making Heatsoul is either if you get disrupted, but still have enough gas to be able to, because like, if you play your hand right, if you get disrupted, you can still make Terahertz plus Heatsoul. You might not be able to set up the Superfact as well, but you can still do that, which is like, okay. And then there's like, it'll actually see a game like this example I'm about to give. There are some games where you just have like such a good hand that you can just play out not only Singularity plus Terahertz, but also Heatsoul as well, if you just have like a million extenders in hand, which again, we will see a game like that where we turn 1, make Singularity, Terahertz, and Heatsoul. So I'm pretty sure anyway we have a game like that. As far as like main deck building changes I have made, the main one is that I put multiplication back into the deck. I really hate drawing this card, and I seem to do it a lot in this deck. I don't like ever seeing multiplication in my hand. The other thing I previously didn't like about multiplication is that it's not a bridge to circular with Maxx. Because multiplication has 500 attack, just like Maxx does, you can't reveal multiplication if you reveal Maxx. Which is a little bit annoying. I mean, we still have Dotscaper, right? But it's definitely annoying to not be able to use it as a bridge in that regard. But, you know, at the same time, when I was playing without it, I found myself in just enough situations where I could Terahertz OTK with it, but wasn't able to. It happened just often enough that I was like, you know what, okay, I think multiplication is ultimately probably worth it, even if it shows up in your hand sometimes, and oops, I didn't mean to back out there. Even if it shows up in your hand sometimes, and even if it's not the best in that regard. Otherwise, I think things are fairly standard here. I mean, we're playing Drolls because it's very good in this meta, and Mathmech, of the top tier decks, is probably one of the ones least affected by Droll, especially with Cynet Mining at 2 now. Because beforehand, the best time to draw Mathmech was if they small worlded or Cynet Mining for the Circular, but of course now, with fewer Cynet Minings, that happens a little bit less often. I also definitely think the Firewall package is still the way to go, like, for sure. You don't need to play Nabla for Firewall Defenser to be a live line. I know I've said that you have to in the past, and it certainly makes it easier, but I think Defensor by itself is still a full combo line. You just have to send the Diameter with the Terahertz during the end phase, right? And of course, if you have an extender, it's a full combo with like the Singularity and Terahertz and all that fun stuff. So, plus the fact that like Firewall Defensor, like, because here's the thing, I think a lot of people who don't like Firewall Defensor and who prefer Cynet Conflict and Microcoder are so focused on turn 1. But Defensor is so much better, like, on any turn that's not your first turn. I've said this before, and I'll say it again, because it's one of the most common questions I get asked. Why don't you like Microcoder and Cynet Conflict? Because they are only good exactly on your first turn if you go first. After that, they're just awful. They're not worth it anymore. Cynet Conflict becomes pretty much useless after that point in the game. And for that reason, I don't like top decking it. I also don't really like opening it. Also, if you're going for that line, you can't make Singularity, which, like, that's its own debate, whether you think Heatsoul plus Cynet Conflict or Singularity is better. I tend to value 2 bounces over 2 draws and another Omni Negate. Even though the Omni Negate is on a counter trap, you already have 3 negates on your end board of, you know, Terahertz. Well, Terahertz plus Superfactorial, right? So I prefer splitting, like, the difference in, like, having a variety, right, of disruption, and I like having the Singularity bounces for that reason. Plus, again, like I said before, Firewall Defenser, like, if you top deck this, you know, after turn 1, then you're, oh my god, you're golden, you have an OTK there. But top decking something like Microcoder or Cynet Conflict after turn 1 feels miserable. It feels awful. And yeah, I guess that's kind of just why, like I said, I don't like Firewall Defenser. Also, some people say, like, oh, but Firewall Guardian is a Garnet. This card is not a Garnet, by the way. Like, if you open this card and an extender, that's still a full combo. So Firewall Guardian is not a Garnet. It's a very useful card. But otherwise, I think the rest of my build is, like, fairly standard. Not playing Gatchiri at Ignister, I did want to try to find room for it, but, like, I will admit, as much as I've talked that card up in the past, it can sometimes be a little bit of a situational extender. Not in terms of how easy it is to summon, but how well you can actually make use of the, like, unaffected by cards effect. Especially if it's not turn 1. Gatchiri, I will say, kind of suffers from, well, that's not true actually, because Gatchiri is still useful turn 2, or, yeah, turn 2 or beyond, because you could still go for Accesscode and OTK with it unaffected. I don't know, I just ultimately didn't have enough room for it. I wanted, like, the Veilers and the Imperms for more disruption, and the Drolls as well. And I think having tested the deck, I don't think that this is too much disruption at all. I think the deck is still totally fine. So, anyway, let's go ahead and break this list down card by card. Yeah, and then we'll do that, and then we'll see some games. So, we're on 2 Effect Veiler, 2 Droll and Lockbird, 1 Dotscaper, 3 Maxx, 3 Ash Blossom and a Joyous Spring, 1 Firewall Guardian, 1 Mathmech Sigma, 1 Mathmech Addition, 1 Mathmech Subtraction, 1 Mathmech Multiplication, 1 Mathmech Diameter, 3 Mathmech Circular, 3 Firewall Defenser, 3 Parallel Exceed, 1 Nibiru, the Primal being, 2 Cynet Mining, 1 Mathmech Equation, 3 Small World, 2 Call by the Grave, 1 Crossout Designator, 3 Infinite Impermanence, and then 1 Mathmech Superfactorial. And that'll be the main deck. For the extra deck, we are on 1 Cyberse Desavewurm, 1 Primathmech Laplacian, 1 Primathmech Alembertain, 1 Mereologic Aggregator, 1 Salamangreat Almiraj, 1 Linguriboh, 1 Link Decoder, 1 Update Jammer, 1 Splash Mage, 1 Golem Crystal Heart, 1 Transcode Talker, 1 Decode Talker Heatsoul, 1 Accesscode Talker, 1 Firewall Dragon Dark Fluid Neo Tempest Terahertz, and then finally 1 Firewall Dragon Singularity. That's going to do it for our list. Let's go ahead and see some games. Okay, let's start with that game I was talking about. This will be against Blackwings, by the way. Let's start with that game I was talking about where we opened just the stone cold nuts and had like a ridiculous turn 1 in board. Because I've done this a couple of times, but I don't think I've actually shown this in a video. So as you can see, I mean, this hand is absolutely insane. To be fair, like Imperm ideally should be called by our crossout. This hand loses pretty... Actually, this hand doesn't lose pretty hard to a Maxx C because... even if they Maxx us, we could still, I'm pretty sure, set up the Superfactorial in like 2 draws. So we have the Cynet Mining, we already have the Circular, we have a good pitch for the Cynet Mining, and we have the Parallel Exceed. It's beautiful. So I'm going to start with Cynet Mining pitching the Sigma, adding the Diameter. Obviously, if that hadn't resolved, it would have been fine, but since it did resolve, I definitely want to get Diameter here, because then I can Special Circular and normal Diameter. This will chain block the Circular search, and also allow me to use Diameter to grab the Subtraction I sent off of Circular. I'll go ahead and bring back Sigma now because I want to overlay with it so it ends up going back into the graveyard. We can use this with the Diameter to make the Alembertain. Now we have the Omni Negate up. Detached to... I'll just add the last Mathmech monster, or not the last one. There's still obviously multiplication, but that obviously stays in the deck. So I'll just grab Subtraction here. Also, actually, the reason I grabbed Subtraction off of Alembertain and not the Equation is because we might have a Circular search on our follow-up turn, and I want that to be live. So I'm going to keep Equation in my deck for the time being and grab the other extender of Subtraction instead right now. So now we can Parallel Exceed. Parallel Exceed F will, of course, grab another copy of itself from the deck. Splash Mage is not activated yet. As you can see, we have like a million bodies. We have like every body in the world here. Turning one of our Parallel Exceeds into Link Decoder. Now, one thing to note about this Link summon, I had to use exactly this Parallel Exceed and Splash Mage to make the Transcode Talker here. Because Transcode Talker, unlike Splash Mage, summons specifically to a zone it points to. So, when you summon Transcode, you need to have a zone open for it. So, that's why I used that Parallel Exceed exactly. And in that situation, you want to use that one exactly, but... now we make the Singularity. Singularity F is going to bring back the Link... or not, that effect won't bring back the Link Decoder. Link Decoder's own F will bring itself back. Alembertain will sack itself to bring back the Circular. Singularity is going to activate to bring back the Transcode Talker. Now I get to link these 3 into the Neo Tempest Terahertz. We're certainly not done yet, though. Terahertz is actually going to send the Dotscaper here. Dotscaper bringing itself back. Now I can special summon the Subtraction, and I have 3 Cyberse monsters with different attributes, so I can link the 3 of them off for the Heatsoul. Beautiful stuff. Yeah, this, like I said, there are some hands where you just have like a million that we drew a second Imperm to. There are some hands like the one we opened, and again, I'll scroll back up here and show you my opening hand as an example of one that can do this. As you can see, it took a lot of the cards in our hand. It was pretty much a 4-card combo here, but this is like the extra full board, right? This is the fullest combo where we have the Singularity, the Terahertz, the Superfact that sets up the Laplacian with the Negate, and we have the Heatsoul as well, and then we just casually have 2 Infinite Impermanences as well. So disgusting. Such a disgustingly good turn 1 in board. We're going to Heatsoul draw during the draw phase. No Maxx C for the full play, but we'll still use Terahertz during the opponent's draw phase to set up the Desavewurm in the graveyard as soon as possible. And poor opponent just didn't even try playing anything. They just passed directly back to us. The only reason I know they're on Blackwing, yeah, is because they, well, I looked at their deck. That's like the only reason, because as you can see, there just was not a lot they could do here. So Normally for my games that I show, I like to, of course, show more of a back and forth and not either me or my opponent dumpstering on the other person. But again, like I said, I have not shown off what a full Mathmech board can potentially look like. So I wanted to go ahead and show this game off for that reason. But we still have, of course, many more games to check out here. Let's go ahead and see the next one now. Okay, this duel we're going to be up against Pearly. I actually don't remember how this game went at all, so this will be a bit of a surprise to both of us. Oh, were they post-ban list? I didn't even think to check. Ah, well. It's fine. Looks like we're going first here. This hand is, like, definitely not bad at all. I'm going to start with the Firewall Defenser. Opponent's got a Maxx. I'm going to still link off the Firewall Defenser because I do have the Droll in hand. That's right, I do actually remember this game now. And I'm glad I saved this game because I can show you how we can play under our own Droll if we need to use it against a Maxx here. Because the thing about Mathmech, a lot of people ask, like, what is Mathmech's like biggest weakness? Like, what is the best hand trap against Mathmech? And I always tell people Maxx. And it's really easy to be like, oh, lol, Maxx. Maxx is good against everything. What are you talking about? But, like, no, really. Against Mathmech, Maxx is, like, the best hand trap you can have. Because it's very difficult unless Mathmech opens Circular and Diameter. Which is even harder now that Diameter's at 1 and we have one less Cynet Mining. Unless you open those two cards exactly, then it's you can't make significant plays under Maxx. So one of the reasons to play Droll Knockbird in theory is to not only be useful against all the decks in the meta right now that it's good against, but it can also help against Maxx, this deck's biggest weakness. But you might probably be wondering, okay, in a situation like this though, where they Maxx really early and we have to Droll really early before we can search for Superfact or off of Alembertain or anything like that, what kind of plays can we actually make? And I'll go ahead and show you here. So Defensor F is going to bring out the Guardian, of course. We can then link off for the Splash Mage. Gonna use the Guardian effect to bring itself back. Splash Mage will bring back Defensor. Don't make Alembertain here like we normally would, because remember, we're under that Droll Knockbird, so no adding. Instead, I'm gonna go straight for the Link Decoder off of the Defensor. Link off the Splash Mage and Decoder for the Transcode, naturally. Oh, you know what? The Link Decoder was actually, I think, a little bit oh, you know what? No. I remember what I was thinking here. So, alright. I could have actually made Terahertz plus Heatsoul here, if, and only if, the Dotscaper was not in my hand and in the deck. What you would have done here, instead of bringing back Linguriboh like I did, is you would bring back Splash Mage. You would then link some Terahertz using Transcode, Firewall Guardian, and Link Decoder. And then from there, you could use the Terahertz. Excuse me, I need a drink of water. Then you could use the Terahertz to send the Dotscaper from deck. You would have Splash Mage plus Dotscaper would be able to go into Heatsoul. But again, here, because Dotscaper is in my hand, I'm not able to do that. So I'm going to use Transcode to bring back Linguriboh instead and just have like a trap card negate. I figure better to have it not need it than need it not have it, but at the same time, the Linguriboh is a little bit risky because it is a very weak monster in attack mode, and some decks like Pearly can OTK into a weak monster that's in attack mode. So they're going to start by activating the Stray Street and then the Sleepy Memory. There were a number of things I could have chained to this Sleepy Memory. Like, I could have chained the Desavewurm to negate it. There is also, not to Sleepy Memory, but in general, there's keeping in mind the Aggregator in our extra deck, right? That the Terahertz can send. But I ultimately decided to just chain the Maxx here. What I'm kind of thinking is, and the other thing to keep in mind is, like, normally I would try to Aggregator on the Pearly, but they have the field spell up, so I can't do that. So what I'm thinking here is, I can use the Terahertz send Aggregator to negate my friend Pearly, and I'll use the Desavewurm on another quick play spell that's not this Sleepy Memory, because Sleepy Memory by itself is kind of like whatever, but okay, now they're going to try to chain a Pretty Memory too, and here I'm going to Desavewurm. So the reason that I'm using the Desavewurm on the Pretty Memory and not the Sleepy, right, is because, one, I don't want my opponent to get either a summon that doesn't give me a draw or a second summon in general, right? I don't want them to have both Pearly and Pearlily because that's both a search and an excavate, and because of the field spell, I can't interact with those. Furthermore, I don't want them to be able to, like, honestly, gaining 1,000 life points, it's kind of like lol, 1,000 life points, but it kind of can matter sometimes when trying to find lethal. Not as much in this case because we could probably just send the multiplication off the Terahertz, but it's definitely annoying. There are games playing Mathmech where I've been messed up by Pretty Memory giving just 1,000 life points. But also, you know, it is mainly just the I don't want my opponent to have a second summon, especially when I'm not going to draw off of, so. Okay, so they are going to summon the Purlily. Looks like they end up pitching a Droll and Lockbird. They're adding the My Friend now. I get to draw off the Maxx too. Alright, now here Purlily is going to link off into Relinquished Anima, and this play right here is exactly why you play Anima and Purly. Anima is, in the grand scheme of things, decently optional in Purly. You don't need to play it to be successful with Purly. But this situation right here is exactly why you would want to, because now I have to use my Terahertz effect to send Aggregator and negate the Anima. I don't get to use it on the My Friend. Alright, so My Friend activating here, revealing 3 Happy Memory. I'm a little bit anxious at this point, as I'm like, oh, I do have that Linguriboh. But then I remembered, actually, at about this point, also, while they discarded a second Droll, that they can't actually do the Happy OTK here, because I have Terahertz up. A lot of people don't remember this about Terahertz, which is funny because it's literally the first sentence of the card, but any monster effects activated by your opponent during the battle phase are going to get negated. This is not target, this effect doesn't even activate itself. This is a continuous effect. So there is like no real threat of this effect being stopped for that reason, and also for that reason, the Happiness cannot OTK because it's not going to be able to add stuff, it's not going to be able to have the attack of my monsters, and yeah. I mean, here it won't really get to do that anyway because they don't have Delicious and they'll destroy the Linguriboh in the first battle, but I think they did that for a search, which they're not going to get, and then they just concede because they don't get the search there. And of course, in the process of trying to get to the Happiness that couldn't search, they end up giving me, as you can see, a whole grip of cards thanks to Maxx. So, yeah, the funny thing is, though, like, even if, like, let's say Happiness had resolved, like, I don't even know what they would have done there. Like, Zeus, I guess, but that still gives me, like, a whole bunch of draws, and there's no way I can't play around a Zeus, right? I don't know. Maybe I can't, but we don't live in that world. We live in the world where Terahertz's effect is cool and won us the game. So, got a couple more duels to see. Let's go ahead and check those out. The last 2 games, actually, not just this one, but this and the last game are both going to be against Dragon Link. So, this is a 54 card Dragon Link, which is kind of interesting. Alright. We've got a phenomenal hand here. Oh my god. I feel like every time I play Mathmech, all of my opening hands just like custom hands. Here I'm going to add Diameter. I actually mostly use the Small World here to test for the Ash Blossom and see if I could bait it. Now you might be thinking, well, Lex, you already have Call By and Crossout. Why would you need to bait an Ash Blossom here? And you're right, I don't need to bait an Ash Blossom in order for my plays to resolve. But if my opponent does want to fire off an Ash Blossom against that Small World, like, Circular plus Addition is still the full combo of Singularity plus Terahertz plus Superfact, right? So even if the Small World gets negated, I wouldn't use either of these against that Ash Blossom. I would just let it go. And then I can save these for other threats that might come up, like Call By on Maxx, Crossout on something like Imperm or Nibiru that can't be called by. But here they didn't seem to have it, so we ended up being fine. But there is a reason to activate Small World even in a situation like this. Now, if I had had Circular Diameter, actually, I still might have activated Small World and revealed Circular, pitched something, and just added another Circular. I honestly might have done that just to try to bait the Ash Blossom. Like, I don't think that's a bad play. Maybe it's not, like, the greatest use of it, but I don't think it's bad. Alright, we get to make the Alembertain with a Diameter here, which means when my opponent tries to activate their Saronir, I actually get to use the Alembertain's effect. Now, one important thing I want to note here, that I really wish this would show in replays, but it doesn't. I wish it would show when your opponent gets past priority. Because one thing I want to note is that in this situation, my opponent got past priority after Alembertain activated. And yet, you know, they didn't chain the effect here. So my first thought was like, okay, they have another Bestial in hand. So they could also have other disruption. Nibiru was a card I definitely kept on my mind for a lot of this turn. As moving forward, pretty much every play you're going to see me make, my opponent got past priority afterwards. So it might seem like I'm just, going through my turn 1 combo, but I am having to keep in mind that my opponent still has a live piece of interaction available that they haven't used yet. So again, I'm thinking it's most likely a Bestial monster, but I'm also thinking it could be Nibiru. Although I think if it was a Bestial, I don't know why you wouldn't chain it there and just use, like, get rid of Sigma there. I don't know, whatever. But All right, we're going for the Subtraction. Gonna link that off with the Circular, going for the Splash Mage here. I also thought maybe it was Imperm, like that was another strong contender, but they didn't use it on like, well, anything moving forward. But you'll notice that with Splash Mage, right, I actually brought back the Subtraction. This is also why I use Subtraction as a material, really, in the first place, right? I wanted to get it in the graveyard so I could target it with Splash Mage and not have a light or a dark target that could potentially, obviously, get eaten by Abyss Seal. Okay, here's Transcode. Link Decoder, Transcode. And of course now we make our Singularity. Gonna proc Alembertain's effect, once again targeting the Subtraction that is in the yard, and not a light monster that would get eaten by Abyss Seal. And now we can finally make our Terahertz. Terahertz Staff is going to activate, sending yet the Desavewurm. Okay, now I want to talk about this. The fact that I set 2, and only 2. I set Called By and Superfact. I did not set Crossout before moving to my end phase. The reason I didn't set Crossout is, again, I was still thinking to myself that there is a decent shot my opponent has in Nibiru, and could be looking to activate it. Now, as you can see, they didn't, but this is something that's happened to me personally, where I suspect they have Nibiru, and then during my main phase, I end up setting the Crossout anyway, towards the end of it, and they're like, Nibiru. And I'm like, ah, well, that was super preventable. Also, talking more about disrupts that are good against Mathmech, Nibiru, because as we talked about in the main profile, right, extra X space on this deck is really tight right now, which means most often we can't afford to be running Link Spider, which is our easy out for Nibiru. Now, granted, you want to be mindful of when you Nibiru against Mathmech, because even without Link Spider, it's certainly possible for them to recoup and recover anyway. I recommend doing it after they drop Transcode. After they drop Transcode, in my experience, tends to be one of the best times to Nibiru if you think they're going to OTK. But the thing about this board that we're seeing here, right, you could just wait until the end of the main phase and Nibiru the 2 big Link monsters here as well, and give me a 0 defense token. Nibiru alongside Maxx ends up being one of the best disruptions to use against Mathmech, in my opinion. I had opponents starting off with the red eyes, and then they pass, and I was like, I was so ready to actually play out this game and try to figure out, like, okay, they got a bunch of stuff. I know they probably have another Abyss Seal. Well, we know they have a Saronir. I'm kind of baffled by this play from my opponent, actually. Like, I don't know. It's just, I don't know why you wouldn't, like, try to summon Saronir here and maybe go for a Romulus, like, try to do something. Maybe the rest of their hand is that bad, but during their end phase, I'm going to go for the Superfact. I know they have the Saronir because, you know, we negated but not destroyed it. So I know my Diameter is going to get eaten here. I'm aware that's going to happen, but the Superfact still gives me 2 bodies on the board to work with. Not that I'm probably even going to need them to OTK here, but oh, I even forgot to use the Terahertz effect last turn because I was just so distracted. Yeah, I'm just going to move to battle phase here. The reason I'm moving to battle phase is to reap the benefits of the Terahertz effect, because it's only your opponent's monster effects that get negated, right? So I get to use the Singularity bounce during the battle phase to clear the way, and my opponent tries to go and use a Saronir, but again, people are not aware of the secret effect of Terahertz, and I can just swing in for lethal very easily here. I actually could have done it with Singularity too, because it also had 8,000 attack. And we didn't use Circular's effect this turn, so we could attack with both also if we really needed to. And Terahertz had multiple attacks as well on monsters, but yeah, that'll do it for that game. We got one more to see. Let's go straight into it. Okay, as I mentioned before, this person is also going to end up being on Dragon League. This person, however, is on a 40-card build, which we tested a 40-card Dragon League build, and it didn't go so well because we had a really rough time opening either Chaos Space or Quick Launch. Spoiler alert, our opponent's going to open both. They get both. We're going to be going second here as well, so we do have a going second game in this video. Our opening hand is like, this would have been a phenomenal turn 1 hand. As a turn 2 hand, it's like, okay. Like, you don't necessarily, especially for a deck like Mathmech that can find an OTK line with fairly low resources and, you know, do it fairly easily. Going second hand that's all gas is actually not that bad. The Superfactorial is really the awkward card here because this card, it's not like awful, you know, going second, but it's definitely much less impactful. So yeah, my opponent's just gonna do regular Dragon Link things here. They have a full combo. We're gonna see a huge board from them. I think they end on Borland, Borreload, and Baron, if I recall correctly. It's something like that. It's gonna be scary, but I mean, you know, we'll persevere, we'll push through. This game's actually really funny for reasons we're gonna see when it comes around to my turn. Yep, sending the Absorouter. Oh, they're on Rocket Synchron, okay. I'm still honestly not that much of a fan of Rocket Synchron. I don't think it's a bad card, but I think Caliber is better. They do get to go for Chaos Ruler here, though, as a result of having that Rocket Synchron, and also having not used their, normal summon. Not a bad Chaos Ruler reveal. They're going to, of course, end up grabbing the Magnum Hut. Makes sense, that is definitely the best of the cards there. Activating the Boot Sector launch, Boot Sector grabbing the Tracer. Oh, actually, I was going to say, of course, we didn't see the Tracer get revealed off of the Absorouter. That was Rocket Synchron, so they already had Tracer in hand. Pistia bringing back the Rocket Synchron. Now there's also the Magnum Hut effect. Thankfully, they are Dark Locked. Yes, they are Dark Locked, so no Baron. So I misremembered that, actually. I thought they ended on a Baron. Oh, they end on the Hot Red Dragon. That's right, because they have the Rocket Synchron up still. That was the other Omni Negate. I knew it was a second Omni. I was just trying to figure out which one it was. Alright, yep, Chaos Ruler bringing itself back. See, this is also, like, why I'm not the biggest fan, personally, of Rocket Synchron and Hot Red Dragon Archfiend, is because you only get to set it up, especially turn 1, but even in general, you only get to set it up when you have a really good hand like this. Like, the only reason my opponent was able to set up the Rocket Synchron and Chaos Ruler is because they already opened the Tracer. I mean, my opponent just opened the Stone Cold Nuts here, but... yeah, I don't know, I think Rocket Caliber is, like, easier to actually weave into your combos and does more if you get disrupted. And it looks like Magnum Hut will end up adding Leviamere. Kind of interesting. I figured it would add like Juraswarm or something, but oh well. Right on time, Ash Blossom. Love to see you late like that. So let's look at what we have to play through. We have to play through a monster effect negate, 2 Omnis, and a potential back row. So 3, maybe 4 negates. With a hand like this, it'll be a little bit dicey, but it's going to mostly depend on when my opponent uses their Disrupt, right? I'm going to start with Circular and go for Sigma. Opponent's got a call by for the Sigma. I thought it was going to be a Bystial, but call by, you know, same difference really. We only played 1 Sigma, so the effect negation doesn't really matter at all. Thankfully, we do still have the Subtraction, so I'll go ahead and activate that. I'll target the Hot Red Dragon here, because I think this is one of the more likely cards to stick around. It's also got the lowest attack points, and also we can't... I don't think we can affect the Borland. I mean, no, maybe we can. Wait, does this target? It does target, never mind. So yeah, I think it's smartest to use it on the Hot Red Dragon here. Summoning Diameter, bringing back the Alembertain, linking out for Splash Mage. So one thing you'll probably notice... okay, here's the Borland. One thing you'll probably notice is that even though I am getting disrupted a little bit here, it's not the most difficult thing for me to find my plays, but I'm a little bit anxious about how it's going to be moving forward after this Borland. So, going for the Link Decoder. Going to link off the Splash Mage and the Decoder for, of course, the Transcode Talker. We do have the Equation and also Small World. You know what, one thing I will say I maybe should have considered doing sooner was Small Worlding away Ash Blossom for a Parallel Exceed. Because I have a call by, even if they have Maxx, which they clearly don't by this point, like, we still have options against something like that. Yeah, that was a misplay in hindsight. I should have Small Worlded away for Parallel Exceed to try to find more bodies, but... okay, this Transcode I was like sure was going to get negated, but it didn't for some reason. My opponent elected not to negate it with either of these monsters, so I'm going to go for Terahertz. And like, as soon as this Terahertz sticks, I'm like, I have it. I have lethal here. I have lethal. And I think, really, my opponent's main mistake was not negating this Transcode Talker. I think they were waiting for me to go for, like, an Update Jammer Accesscode OTK. And they were going to wait until the summon of Accesscode finished resolving. and then they were going to use like the Hot Red Dragon Archfiend to negate the Accesscode's effects. But I ultimately ended up going for the Terahertz, and now I go to battle phase, right? Terahertz F will send the multiplication. That doesn't work. Hot Red Dragon doesn't work during the battle phase. This is the third game, I'm realizing now. This is the third game that we have won off of Terahertz's secret effect. So those of you who are looking for advice on how to play against Mathmech, I guess that ends up being my biggest point of advice is do not forget about Terahertz's secret effect. As you can see from this video alone, it is very relevant. It comes up a lot, and it's really good installation for those of you who are playing Mathmech and not playing against it. Well, you'll be playing against it too, and for those of you who are using Mathmech, yeah, just moving, if you have Terahertz up and you know you can OTK, just move to battle phase, and then that so severely reduces what your opponent could possibly have against you. Especially if you have the Desavewurm set up in the graveyard, right? Because then not only does Terahertz continuously negate any monster effect activated, but you can also negate a spell or a trap effect as well. So that's going to go ahead and do it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed these games. Let's go ahead and move now to our outro. Alright everybody, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you for watching it all the way to the very end. That means a whole lot to me, and it's also a fantastic way to support the channel. And if you're interested in supporting the channel in other ways besides YouTube, there are plenty of ways to do that. If you check out the description below, you'll find a bunch of links down there. One of them goes to my Patreon. You're actually seeing the names of everyone subscribed to the Patreon on the screen right now. So if you're interested in getting your name in the credits here at the end, if you want to see more daily Master Duel content, or if you're interested in one-on-one private coaching sessions, I offer all of that on Patreon. I also stream live on Twitch. Feel free to go ahead and click that link and follow and or subscribe there. I also have the Discord community, if you want to follow that link, where hundreds of duelists have already signed up. Free to join, and you can just come hang out, talk about the game, and chill in general. Final link that's going to be in the description is my Twitter. You can follow that if you want some more notifications of what's happening with the channel. So all in all, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day.